Yeah, I think I always refer to those first 4 days as kind of our first block of practices. When you go the first two in helmets and the second two in pads, and I was really just kind of impressed with the individual progress a lot of guys are making, the individual improvement. And I kind of mentioned to him, I said, nobody here is trying to hold you to what you were. Our goal is try to build you to what you can be. And I think that, really across the board, a lot of guys have made substantial improvement and continue to make improvement from one practice to the next. And so, I commended the team on that. We had a day off yesterday and came back today with probably our most difficult practice, knowing we're kind of on a 2-day block. We'll practice this morning like we did, and then tomorrow night. And so today was probably the most taxing practice that we had. And especially too where we're starting to incorporate more facets of the game. We introduced red area today. We'd already introduced third down. So the situations as they come up and performing in those situations and performing at a high level, I think is of the utmost importance. Some guys that I think are just really standing out, playing well. I think Alfred Collins had a really good camp so far. I think Vernon Broughton showed up. I think A.D. Mitchell has really showed up. Definitely see the improvement in Jonte Cook. Just to name a few guys. I know you guys always ask me, so I try to get ahead of it. So with that, we'll open it up.
Everybody's been singing the phrases of Jonte so far this camp against the players. What is it about him that made him step up as a freshman?
Well, I think something when you first arrive and you're a 5-star and you're here in spring ball, one, they have really good coaches at DeSoto, and he's been coached in a way that he believes in. And then you go to a new system or scheme, just like when our guys leave us, then it's about doing things the way that organization wants it done, whether it's a specific route or a scheme or whatever. And what I've loved about Jonte right now is how coachable he is. I think he's really trying to do what we're asking of him to do, and then when he doesn't do it the right way, he acknowledges that and tries to do it again better the next time. But I just think there's a level of comfort schematically. I think that it's making sense to him, what we're asking of him, and then he's making the most of his opportunities. Not perfect, like, this time of camp with receivers, how do we minimize the drops? How do we take advantage of opportunities, 50-50 balls? And so those things are going to happen. But when you're playing fast and you have an idea of knowing what to do and you're coachable and you're not making the same mistakes twice, you give yourself an opportunity to be successful in this system. And that's what's showing up for him.
Sark, do you have to tell Jalen Catalon to be not careful, because it's hard to say to a guy, be careful playing football, but play any differently because of the injuries in the game?
That's a hard one. His style of play is innate in him, and I'm remiss for leaving him out because I think he's had a real impact on our team, definitely defensively and in the secondary. He is very intentional with his work. He's got a high level of intensity and mental focus. He communicates on a really high level, and then when he knows, he goes, and that's a great trait, not just for him, but for other guys to see of a style of play in the secondary. So, we manage him with the days when we got him in a green jersey and we don't want him to have contact, and then we manage him with days when we do want to have him have contact. We're trying not to have back-to-back days with him. I'm not concerned about Jalen Catalon come week 1 hitting somebody. I think that is in his DNA. And so we just got to manage it as we get ourselves to the season. But I don't want to take his stinger from him, So we'll manage it on our own. But when we give him the green light to go play, we want him to play the way he's accustomed to playing.
Could he be an every down player?
No question. No question.
With his past considered, man, not the quality of his play.
No. I mean, I think naturally, like our entire team, we're going to play Rice at 2:30 Labor Day weekend. It's going to be hot. I don't know. They'll shoot the field, and I bet when they get the heat index on the turf in DKR, we're going to be 130s, 140s. I mean, it's going to be that hot. everybody's going to have to play. Everybody's going to be on somewhat of a pitch count. Everybody's going to have to. We're going to have to roll, and our 2 deep, even our 3 deep, is going to create opportunities for a lot of guys to play. So to think one guy is just going to play 75 straight, probably not realistic. So that in and of itself, everybody's going to have to play. But if ideal situation, ideal scenario, that guy's an every down player for us.
Busy week in college athletics, a lot of movement, realignment still in the news. Just your take on Oregon, Washington, all these different schools and what's happening there.
I talked about all this a year ago. We were the talk of realignment a year ago. We talked about it last year. This year we're in the Big 12. What everybody else is doing, hey, I said it a year ago, adapt or die. College football's changing on a lot of levels, so you got to adapt to what it is. You all have to adapt to what it is, right? The game is changing, the conferences are changing, NIL's changing, transfer portal's changing. We're in the Big 12 this year. That's what our focus is on. What everybody else decides to do, that's up to them.
Does it sadden you, though, being kind of a Pac-12 guy from the coaching?
You know, it's odd, but I talked about this a year ago too with SC and UCLA. You know, I grew up on those 2 schools, being from Los Angeles, them being in the Pac-10 at that time, that game, what it meant. So that, you know, they're going to go play Rutgers and Penn State and Michigan and whatever else. You know, is it weird? Sure, but quite frankly, I'm more concerned about playing Texas Tech and Baylor and, you know, TCU and everybody else we got to play. I just don't have time and energy to give my opinions on all this kind of stuff, unfortunately.
Steve,
Anthony, kind of like Jonte, another player that you guys have been talking about. How do you balance using what he's able to do this year with preparing him for maybe a different role?
I'm focused on this year. Our job is to put our team in the best position to try to win a conference championship. So we're going to focus on this year. We'll have another 9 months to get ready for the next season after that.
What will you focus on this year for Anthony?
We're still figuring that out.
Can you talk about the development of CJ Baxter as a, you know, let's pick up all the kind of the dirty work?
I think he's come a long way. You know, again, like a lot of these guys. You mentioned Jonte, you mentioned Anthony Hill, you mentioned CJ Baxter. When they come from high school, the game changes, right? Everything changes. The nuances, the details, the schemes change. And there's that transition period for them that takes a minute. And like all 3 of these guys, I really credit, because we haven't gone out there with training wheels on the bikes with these guys. You know, we've taken the training wheels off, we've pushed them down the road, and they've fallen some. But now they've learned how to ride the bike, and CJ's no different. You know, he's pass protecting, he's running routes, he's running the ball well. I think he's got a real understanding of you know, systematically what we try to do. When he makes an error, he's very coachable and tries to do it right. But the one thing, like with all 3 of those guys you mentioned, effort is never an issue, right? They play hard. Like Anthony Hill plays hard. CJ Baxter runs hard, plays hard. Jonte runs hard. And so we critique effort first. We can deal with some of the errors. But as long as you're coachable and you give us great effort, you know, we'll get it right with you.
I'll give you one more freshman, Derek Williams, just kind of went back to you early.
Come on very fast. You know, it's kind of similar to, if you remember last year, of those 7 linemen we signed, 6 of them were mid-year. There was one guy that came in the summer. That was Kelvin Banks. So a lot of times there's this whole idea that, well, if he comes early, he's going to be ready to play. If he comes in the summer, he won't be ready to play. Derek has really come in with a mindset to try to be the best player that he can be. I think football makes sense to him. You know, I think his natural football IQ is very high, and he's a very versatile player. He's got great length. He has good speed. He's not afraid at all of contact. I think he's got a couple really cool mentors in Jalen Catalon and Jaron Thompson, 2 very experienced players that he's learning from. So I would anticipate him, you know, definitely contributing to this team's success. To what degree, we don't know yet. We're 5 practices in here, but he's definitely a very good football player.
You have a veteran offensive line right now, and you have a lot of shoes to fill at the running back position from last season with the throw Sean and Beach on going on, but still a lot of depth at running back. How does a veteran offensive line make sure the running backs are on the same page so they have to work together a lot?
Well, I mean, that's to your point, you got to work with one another. You got to play at a level of understanding, right? So the runners really need to understand the runs, right? It's not just taking the ball and going wherever you want. It's really understanding blocking schemes. It's understanding the power of the play, right? Where's the power in the play? Where's the double team? And anticipating, predicated off the defense, where the ball should hit. And the idea is the offensive line's got to be consistent with their blocking to give the runners trust in where those balls are supposed to hit. And I think that we're seeing it. Today was probably, off the naked eye, probably our best day running the football, where there were some really clean holes and the runners were hitting it on time. And when the holes, even they were clean but maybe not big, they were able to get through because they were anticipating where those holes were. And so whether it was Jonathan Brooks, Jaden Blue definitely showed up today. CJ had some nice runs. So that's how the offensive line helps those guys, is their consistency in their blocking and then moving people at the line of scrimmage. It's one thing to cover people up. It's another to move people to create running lanes. And I thought we did a better job of that today.
Steve, can you talk about the emphasis of getting JT involved more in the downfield passing game as opposed to some of the uneven job stuff?
Yeah, inevitably, we've got some pretty good weapons. I don't look shy in saying that. We try to build a roster that is complete, and I think that we now have a really good receiving core to go along with JT and him building off of what his first 2 years look like. I always remember, for whatever reason, everyone kept asking me about him his freshman year like he was some sort of disappointment or something because he wasn't starting and catching a bunch of balls. And I kept saying he's developing at the position. And then so last year he goes out and catches 55 balls. But we kind of feel like there's so much more room for growth for him. Like he can still go to another level. He's such a dynamic playmaker. He's got great hands. And the biggest thing to me is he is so smart. JT Sanders is probably one of the smarter players on the offensive side of the ball for us. He's got an extremely high football IQ. We ask a lot of him. He understands what we're trying to do when we call specific plays, and then he runs his routes accordingly. So I think it does lend itself to where there could be some more opportunities for him down the field because of his understanding of coverages to go along with his physical ability to go do those types of things.
Going back to
Time for two last ones.
Going back to Jonte, and I guess DeAndre kind of fits in this too. Is it hard for freshmen to adapt to the college game? I know Xavier had a great season a couple years ago, but is it overall tough for freshman receivers to adapt?
They're all different, I've been around it where freshman receivers show up and they play great football day one and they're playmakers and away they go. I had Juju Smith-Schuster, I'll never forget, as a true freshman. Walked right in, very comfortable doing it. Xavier, very comfortable doing it. I've seen guys that it maybe take a year or two, or maybe later into their freshman year to when they really start to get it. That doesn't mean they won't be great players. Sometimes guys just pick it up a little bit easier. Sometimes the speed of the game makes sense to them. Sometimes it takes them a little longer. But everybody's path is different. Everybody's journey is a little different to become the player that they can. We try to push them as far as we can. We try to figure out the things that they're really good at. We try to, get a baseline knowledge of where they're at schematically so that when the games come around, we're putting them on the field to do the things that they have shown us to do well in practice so that they can build confidence. Like, okay, this is where I'm supposed to be, and this is a lot of fun. I want to learn more stuff, and I want to get better at more things and expand my toolbox so the coaches can count on me to do more. And so we're constantly evaluating what they do well, what they know, so that when scrimmages and games roll around, I can put them on the field to do the things that they do well to gain confidence so that when we go back to practice, they want to work on the other stuff so that more things you do well, more opportunities you get on the field.
Speaking of that, having two outside threats, at least two, how does that change your offense? How does that expand things?
Yeah, no, I'm very comfortable with more than two out there right now on our team. And obviously Xavier, we know what he is. And he's really versatile. Sometimes I think he's almost better in the slot than he is outside. He's a very versatile player. I think what AD, Isaiah Nair bring is very unique with their length and their ability to make contested catches. I think Jonte sometimes falls into the mold of Xavier, where he's kind of can play inside and or outside, and then Jordan kind of being very comfortable in the slot. And so, for us, if we can deploy 5 people onto the field, you can't double everybody and load the box and stop the run. And so I think that's something that we've been trying to build towards on our roster. We feel like we kind of got it right this year. And now the quarterback understanding distributing the ball and getting those guys the ball in space, because all those guys I'm mentioning, JT included, and all those runners, they're hard tackles in space. They're hard people to get on the ground in space. So if we can deploy people right on the field and we can get the ball to them in a timely fashion accurately, not only should we get completions, I think we can create some run after the catch better than we have in the last couple of seasons.
Thanks, Coach.
All right, y'all. Thank you.
Thank you.